my advice would be, there would be two pieces. Number one, don't sweat the small stuff, because all the little things, it's like the little chihuahuas that are nipping at your heels. Just don't worry about that, because when your attention is on the small stuff, you can't go with the big stuff. And it would be what we talked about earlier. That is, you need to work on your business and not in your business. Because I think that is, again, I wish if I could go back and talk to my future self or my previous self, and when I did open that salon, and if I would have just focused on training the girls and educating them and worried about filling their chairs as opposed to worried about filling my chairs, I think that I would be in a different place. Now I'm where I'm supposed to be, and I understand that.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Kim Becker, and Kim graduated from high school and wanted to go to law school. Told her parents she would need to figure out how to get there. Her parents told her she would need to figure out how to get there. And so started working at a hair and tanning salon, and was told that the beauty school was a great way to pay for law school. So went to school, or beauty school. Never quite made it to law school, but then was working for a period for someone, or wanted to work for someone else for a while, and then decided to start her own salon and grew it. She then sold her salon and started a nonprofit called Hello Gorgeous that helps cancer patients and does mobile day spas for those patients. And then kind of initially bought one mobile salon, got another one gifted for her, trained up others on how to doing the salon, and has continued to work on that nonprofit, and that leads a bit to where she's at today, and she'll provide us with more detail from there. So with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Kim.
Well, thanks, Devin. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely excited to have you. So I gave the 30-second version to a much longer journey. So why don't we go back a bit in time to graduating from high school and wanting to go to law school?
So, back when I graduated from high school a long time ago, but, back when I was there wasn't anything, as far as a 529 plan goes. And that wasn't where my parents were thinking. I came from a very blue collar family. And so they basically said, we got you through high school, and if college was something that I wanted to do, that I was on my own to get myself there. So had to figure out a way to do that. I had my heart set. My mom said I'd make a really good attorney because I was really good at arguing with her. So she said that, have at it. So I got in a part-time job and worked at a tanning/beauty salon, and the girls there were really supportive. And they said, if you want to go to law school, you should just go to beauty school, because you could literally cut hair all the way through and pay for your entire education. And I thought that's a great idea. So I decided to go to beauty school, and the rest is history. I got in there and found my creative outlet, and absolutely loved being a hairdresser, and worked for a couple of salons, and then decided that I wanted to open my own salon, which was great. The story that I shared with you was that when we first talked about opening a salon, my late husband had said that he had a perfect name for the salon, that we should call it Hello Gorgeous.
And I said, before we get into that, and definitely want to get into that, because that's a good part of your story. But so backing up just a little bit, so you were working at, you originally the intent was to go to law school, which, I went to law school. I think it was a great opportunity. I also get it's expensive and it's not for everyone, but, you started down that path and you said, okay, beauty school, doing, cutting hair and doing the, working in the beauty industry is a great way to pay to law school, which I think that was some great advice. Now, kind of at what point did you decide to, hey, I'd rather stay in this industry, or keep doing, or working in the beauty industry and cutting hair and working in salons and that, as opposed to law school? Kind of how did you balance that, or how did you kind of come to that conclusion?
I think that once I got into doing hair, there was just something that felt right. Like it filled a hole, if that makes sense. But I remember going into like my first job and saying I didn't want to be just a hairdresser. So I feel like there was some sort of a drive that was inside of me. So even though it wasn't driving, towards law school, there was something else that I didn't, and again, you may or may not understand being an attorney yourself, but there's a horrible connotation about being just a hairdresser. It's like Kim couldn't make it in college, so she decided to go to beauty school. And so I wanted to get rid of that mark, whatever it would be. And so even once I got out of beauty school and started working in a salon, I'm like, I don't want to be just a hairdresser. And so I actually became an educator. So I worked with national brands and was an educator for them, where I traveled across the country and taught other people how to use, was a natural nail care line. It was an Italian color line that I had done, because I never wanted that. I never wanted that title of just the hairdresser. And so I think that, once I got in there, and like I said, it just filled that void, whatever that was. It felt like that was just the right thing to do. It was the right place. But even that, like I said, it didn't satisfy me, because I knew I needed to do something more.
I think that certainly makes sense. And so now that's kind of, or I so rudely interrupted. No, but interrupted.
No, no, you're good.
No, you're good. But so you said, okay, it's I want to continue to grow and to do more and to build and to do my own thing. And so you're working. How long did you work for other salons and for hairdressers? What period of time was that over?
I think it was about, how old would I have been? I would have been like 30. I think my goal was to open my own salon by the time I was 25, and I missed the mark. And so I think I was 30, because we would have just and actually the salon is still in existence. And Saturday was the 25th anniversary of me opening that salon, and it's still up and running today, which I'm very proud of. And so I think, like I said, I was 18 when I graduated from beauty school. So it was a few years before I actually opened my own salon. So, but I had an opportunity. I think, when you're getting into businesses, finding out what you want, finding out what you don't want is just as important. And so I think that the opportunity that I had to actually go and work for other people, see how they ran their business, see how they actually, brought on new people, what was their protocol, what was their onboarding process, all of those things, that I had the opportunity to say, yep, I like that. Yep, I don't like that. And then being able to say, okay, now I'm going to build that from there. Like when it was the famous story, when I have my own business or when I have my own salon, I'm going to run it this way. I'm going to do it this way. And so that was really helpful for me to actually be in the hair business, to be there as a stylist, because it was also, I always wanted to treat my employees the way I wish I would have been treated. And so I think it was really good for me to go and be an employee before I was an employer, because it gave me a better understanding as I went through that, the operating of being on the other side of things.
Oh, I think that and it always is a much different perspective. It's interesting sometimes you get into it and you have all these things that, hey, this employer does this and this and this wrong, and when I do it myself, I'm going to do it differently. And then you get into it and you think, oh, I get now why they're doing it this and this and this way, and it does make sense, or I'm going to do some of them. And sometimes you get in and say, yep, I was right, it was dumb, and I think that there's a lot better ways to do it, and you do it, and you can make a success of it. But I think it's always kind of making that leap and actually trying it yourself, which kind of distinguishes as to whether or not it's something that, that all your lofty ideas are actually what you want to pursue. So now as you get in and you start building your own, your own salon and your own beauty parlor, how long did you build that? Kind of, how did it go? Did you enjoy it? Because I know you moved on to, your husband originally said you should name it Hello Gorgeous, and I don't think you did on the salon side. You did later on in the business, but kind of how did it go as you decided, hey, I'm going to go out on my own?
So it was a journey. You have to be careful. So we bought an existing salon against the recommendation of our attorney. So please listen to what your attorney tells you to do. And so that was different because of but he said, you're going to buy it, change the name, change the phone number. You don't want any association because of repercussions that the former business owner did, all those kind of things. And so, we were able to do that. We opened a salon, and, and maybe it's just my something inside of me, but I was never satisfied with it. I find now I understand what it was, but there was always something that was missing. And so when we first bought the salon, it was 2 hair stations and 4 tanning beds. Back in the 80s, early 90s, tanning was the big thing. And so It was great because people came in, they bought retail. If they saw some hair stuff that was going on, so you had two. Your hair clients became your tanning clients. Your tanning clients became your hair clients. And so then it was okay. That wasn't good enough. So then we evolved it. So literally every year at about New Year's, we closed the salon and we would revamp the salon every single year. And so we went from 4 tanning beds and 2 hair stations to 4 tanning beds and 4 hair stations. Then one by one, we were pulling the tanning stations out and we added, aesthetics and nails and all the things, because it was just something that was missing on the inside of me and I couldn't tell what it was. So then we took everything out. We ended up in this 1,000 square feet little salon. We had 7 stations. And it was great. And it was big. And I will tell you now, and I hope your listeners can learn from my experience. And I don't know about you. I would love to know your opinion on this, but I made the mistake of working in my business instead of on my business as an owner.
No, I think that's a hard one. I mean, sometimes it's one is you just don't have enough manpower. Things have to get done. So you do it yourself and you kind of get in that mode. But even as you grow, or as you do have the bandwidth or you have the budget to bring new people on, you always tell yourself, hey, I need to do this. I can do it better. I can do it faster. I'm going to lose money, or, and there's all the excuses. And some of them are probably legitimate. You probably could do it better than sometimes, or you could do it quicker. But even that, you start to work in your business. You become kind of almost an employee of your business as opposed to running it. And I think one, it sometimes leaves it that it's lacking. You're not as, you don't find the enjoyment. And two, it can hamper the growth of the business. So I definitely would echo a lot of that and seen that, in different businesses I've done, as well as watching others that we worked with. But if we were to say, okay, so now you go out, there's kind of those ups and downs. You have to pivot. You're trying to continually iterate and decide how you want to do it, and not being an employee of your business, but running your business and those type of things. Now, how long were you in doing your own business and your own salon?
We had the salon for about 10 years. And it was an evolution, and I think that's it too. And you have to evolve or you'll die. That's all there is to it as far as your business goes. And so what I saw in the time that I owned the business was when I first started in the hair industry, and then even at the onset of opening my salon, was commission-based salons were that was the kind of the big. You had a sliding scale, 50 to 65%, depending on the production of the stylist. Well, towards the end of my career as a salon owner, what was happening was independent contracting was becoming a big deal. And so people wanted to come in and they didn't want to necessarily work for commission. They didn't want to work for you. They wanted to work inside your salon, but they wanted just to rent the space. So they wanted to be able to control what happened inside of there. And what's happened now there's been a flux, right? So now it's not more, it's less and less of the commission salons and more of the independent contracting salons, hence the suite, the buildings that have the multiple suites in it now. And that's been huge. And so, years ago, that wasn't it. And so we had to kind of shift with that. And so as I went, I would take the girls out of beauty school and I would train them the way that I wanted to. And it's a nonstop. I equate it to being a college football coach. You every 4 years, you get the team right about where you want it. And then you get all your big seniors graduate, and then you get an influx of green in, these young kids, and you got to train them all over again. Owning a salon is much like that. You get these kids out of school and you get them trained and you get them just the way you want it. And then they leave and go someplace else. And then you get the kids in out of school and you do the same thing again. I don't know how a college football coach does it. That drives me crazy. They got to have a passion for that. And so it got to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm losing these people. What do I need to do? So I needed to shift. And so that's when we were like, okay, look, we'll do both. You can either work here as a commission-based stylist or you can work here as an independent contractor. And then we had rules for both. And then when I successfully sold the salon, I actually stayed on as an independent contractor. But what I realized, which was really cool, and again, God is an amazing being. He puts you through things and you have no idea why you're going through these things, but all of a sudden, 10 years down the road, it'll be apparent as to why you went through those. So once we started Hello Gorgeous, we knew that we wanted to make a bigger impact, more than just me laying on hands. I wanted to train people how to fish. I didn't want to just hand them a fish. So we went into these salons, we created a program and trained them how to do the Hello Gorgeous experience. But what was great was I was able to talk salon owner to salon owner. So I created a program to take into salons to be able to say, hey, as a salon owner, I developed this. So if someone would come in and talk to me, I would be like, sign me up, I want to take that on. But then because I'd also dealt with the independent contractors, we were able to work with the big chains that had the suites to be able to say, okay, look, just because your stylists are independent doesn't mean they can't work as a team. Here's a program that we've put into play so that this will create that that cohesiveness, even though they're working independently, that they can get that team-based experience together. So again, a lot of times you don't understand why you're going through what you're going through, but I think if we just take it, I've learned to ask a very important question. Even the whole time that my husband was sick and before he passed away, I found that I would ask myself why a lot. And why is just one of those questions that you never really get the answer to. So what I started to ask is, okay, what am I supposed to learn from this? And when I shifted that question to what am I supposed to learn from this, all of a sudden these pieces started to fall into place. And I understood, I may not have understood right now, but eventually it was apparent to me why I had to go through all of those things in order to get to where I was.
Oh, I think that makes sense. And, sometimes you're right. The time you're going through, it doesn't always become apparent, but a lot of times as you look back, it definitely makes sense. So now so you've done the salon, you did that for a period of 10 years. And I do agree, you're always having to pivot and adjust. You're always having to figure out what works, what doesn't work. Where is the market evolving? Where are things changing? How can you improve? How can you keep ahead of the competition? And I think you just have to have that mindset that you're going to have to figure it out. And turnover in all industries. And depending on the industry, some of them have greater turnover than not, but you're always having to deal with that. So you have all that in the mix. You did that successfully for 10 years. Now, as you're getting to the end of that, what made you kind of decide to sell the business after you've had it going for a while, and then move over to the nonprofit that you're doing now?
Again, I can't take any of it. It was all God. There's no way that I would have ever thought about this. We teased for a long time because this was truly a calling for me. And I always say, God doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. And I was a hairdresser, and my late husband graduated from Purdue University with a pre-Columbian archaeology degree. We said that God should have chosen 2 marketing majors from Harvard to pull off what we pulled off, because it didn't make any sense. And so, during the time at the salon, there was just always something that was missing. And when this fell on my heart about taking care of these women with cancer and being able to utilize the talent that I had, and make these women over and show them the things that they could do. The whole goal for Hello Gorgeous is to make sure that a woman battling cancer can look at her reflection and she can smile. And, we realize that you don't know what you don't know. And so, the doctor's job is to treat her cancer. That's it. If they ask them, they'll ask, how can I counteract the effects of this? How can I counteract the effects of that? The doctors will say, that's not my job. My job is to make sure that I get rid of the cancer. It's my job to make sure they look really good while they're going through it. Because it's proven that if these women look better, they feel better, and therefore that they'll heal faster, that they can participate in their own entire lives. It's not just the older retired person that gets cancer. It's the young mom. It's the C-suite executive. These people don't want their life to stop just because of cancer, but they're also, I was a hairdresser for 30 years. I get how important appearance is, and especially to a woman. I always feel like, I'd pull my hair back and I could rock bald. I'd be okay. And then you start to realize that they lose their eyebrows and they lose their eyelashes. All the things that make us feel pretty as a woman, all those things are gone. So if I can show how to do that, if I can show how to replace those things, then that's when all of that comes in and they can smile, and then they help to participate in their normal everyday life. So it was just, I tell you what, starting a nonprofit is not easy. I would tell you that I'm a big one for modeling. You don't have to figure out, you don't know how to do it. You just need to find somebody who's already done it and talk to them. So we had the opportunity to talk to Millard Fuller. Millard Fuller was the gentleman that started Habitat for Humanity. And we had a conversation with him, and he has affiliates all over the United States. And so I had a 45-minute conversation with him, basically about, you get the nonprofit going. How do you do it? How do you get going? And my dream, was to have this huge $250,000 vehicle. So I wanted to be debt free. And my question to him is, how do you do this? And the most, it was the best answer I ever received. And I said to him, how much money do I need to have in the bank? I had loans, we had everything paid off, we had everything debt free. So I'm like, how much money do I need to have in the bank in order to get started? In order to really think about going with this. And in his Southern accent, I will never forget this as long as I live. He said, Kim, you'd be really silly to start without $1. He said, you just need to start. You don't have to wait for everything to be perfect. These women don't care. They'd be taken care of in an alley over a garbage can. You just need to start. And I'll tell you, that was one of the best piece of advice that I ever got. You don't have to wait. Yes, your business is always going to be an evolution. You're never going to arrive because things are always going to change. But if you don't start, you don't know. So if nothing else, just start where you are. It may not be as big as you want it to be at this moment, but at least if you start, you'll build that momentum and it'll get it going.
No, and I think that there's a lot of wisdom to that, and most of the time it is that it isn't the money that holds you back. Now, the money's important and you don't need it for a business. It isn't a lot of the other things. It's not even the expertise. It's most of the time it's just getting that momentum, getting started, and figuring it out. That's going to make the difference between the person that always kind of has that idea that they want to pursue but never quite do, versus the ones that actually get going. So, but one of the things, we've had a few different nonprofits on various aspects on the show before, and one of the things that's interesting is nonprofits are an interesting thing in the sense of a lot of times people run them and is, hey, I'll just have it start at a good cause, and people will just be wanting to give me money more than I ever know what to do with, and it will be one where we'll just be able to help lots of people, which is I think it comes from a place of I want to help people, which is great. The difficulty is you still have to a degree run it like a business. It still has to have the money to support itself, to be able to pay for the people that are providing the services, or to organize things, or to have the equipment and everything else. And so as you're saying, okay, I'd like to get into this and get it going, how did you get people willing to support it, and how did you get the business to where it could be sustainable, and kind of how did you get it going?
So it was a lot of hard work and it was a lot of dedication. So it ended up that my late husband was the one that kind of worked full time on the business, and I sold the salon and then continued to work at the salon as an independent contractor, and that's how I supported our family. So I was able to make enough money in 10 days a month to support our family. And then the time I wasn't behind the chair, we were working. So I think it was probably for 9 years, I worked 2 jobs. And so that way, then we were able to bring money in and bring it into the nonprofit and not have to actually, quote unquote, live off of those funds. And that's the hardest thing that I realized. And I still do. And you're so right in that your nonprofit still has to be run like a business, but it's different. I read an article once. I wish I could remember the name of the article, but it talked about how they wish that all Fortune 500 companies had to run their business like the nonprofit is asked to run their business. And they said instead of calling it a nonprofit business, it should be called a for-purpose business. And so what happens is, when I own the salon and, we were having a low income month, week, whatever it was, I could add a couple haircuts. I could add on some color. I could run a retail sale. Kim's in a bad mood. All the retail is 20% off. There was ways for me to be able to bring income in. As a nonprofit, that's very difficult. I can't reach into people's pockets and make them give me money. So what we did a lot is just, we got out there. I did a lot of speaking. I, talked to as many organizations as we possibly could. We ran events. And in the beginning, that's how we were able to do it, was just to be able to get those funds in. As time went on, the events got bigger and, some of the donations got larger. Now we're doing what I want to be able to do is to do just that, is to run it like a business where we're creating, we created a virtual makeover now. So we had to pivot. So as I said, right, if you don't pivot, you're dead. And so COVID hit, we had 33 affiliates in 15 states. They were fundraising for us. We were bringing money in that way. We had all these things, and all of a sudden the world shut down. So the salons shut down and they weren't doing makeovers and they weren't doing fundraisers. But what I realized in the middle of a pandemic, women were still being diagnosed with cancer. So I had to figure out a way to continue to help them. And so what we did was we actually created a virtual makeover now. And so it's something that people they can go online, they can purchase it. We send them a box of items. And then there's a video that goes with it that complements it, that shows them how to use all those items. So it shows them how to create the makeover on themselves. So we educate and empower these women, and it's done in the safety of their own home. Now, again, what a blessing that was, because when everything was flourishing and, the affiliates are going, if you'd have come to me and said, Kim, we really need to do a virtual option with this because you'll be able to help more women, I would have said, absolutely not. Because I got to hug you. I got to be in the same space with you. I got to wrap my arms around you. It's all about that. So to do something virtual was like, no. But if that's the only way that I can help these women, then that's what we do. So because we've added that to our menu of items and resources that we have now, we sent a makeover to Alaska. We sent one to Canada. There's no way that I could have reached those women. And so I think that, one of the biggest thing as a business owner is that you have to learn, number one, to pivot, but you got to be open. You can't be so closed down and so closed-minded that as things evolve, that you aren't willing to evolve with that. And so, especially as a nonprofit, because of the fact that the world's going to change around you, and either you've got to change with it or you won't exist. So.
Oh, I think that there's a lot of truth to that, and I think that I give a kudos because I think that most of the time running a nonprofit it is as hard. It's different, but it's as hard as running a business, and you still have to run it like a business. It's just a different form of a business. So I like more of for a purpose as opposed to nonprofit, is because you're really running it for a purpose, but you're still having to run it as a business. It still has to be sustainable, and I think that it sounds like you guys have found a great way to provide that service and also to help out those people in need. So I think that's definitely great. Well, as we start to wrap towards the end of the episode, and there's always two questions I always love to ask at the end of each journey, or the present day of each journey, which is the first question I always like to ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made, and what'd you learn from it?
The worst business decision I ever made. I don't know that I can't say that I had any worse business decisions. And I'll tell you why, because even the bad ones taught me lessons that went to the good one. If I had to say it, part of it was I would have never opened the salon. And the reason is, I think that people do things for the wrong reason and the right reason. And when I opened the salon, I opened it for all the wrong reasons. I opened it because I felt like I wanted to prove something. To both of my very dear friends who are still my good friends today, graduated from the University of Notre Dame, and they had their degrees and their diplomas, and I was like, I went to beauty school. And so I felt like if I opened a salon, if I opened a business, I could prove something to them that I could hang with them. And I did it for all the wrong reasons. But even though I did it for all the wrong reasons, I wouldn't have changed that, because of the fact that out of that came so many of the other things that I came, that came to now. So I don't know that there were any. I mean, even the little, like, we started a massage business at one point in time, and all of those things I think that I've done have gotten me to where I am right now, and I wouldn't change that. Even all the things, the bad things, I wouldn't have changed it.
All right. Well, I'll still put it as a slight cop-out answer, just because there are still decisions that aren't good decisions. You can learn from them. Doesn't mean that they're good decisions. I can learn from getting hit by a car because I walk out in the middle of the street, and they can say, it was a great learning decision. It's still not a good decision. So
there's that. I guess, so here's what I would say. I would not have purchased somebody else's business. I think that was one of the decisions that I wished I would have done differently, that I would have just gone and found my own space and done my own design and taken out more money than what I had to take out when I bought somebody's existing business. Because what happened was, the day we opened, so the person that we bought the salon from, once she got her money, there was a college that was right behind where we were at, and these kids were getting ready to graduate, and she sold all of these kids these tanning packages, got the money from us, and then closed the salon. And so the first day that we opened, we had a long line out the door, all these kids wanting their money back because they couldn't salon. And then dummy me, I kept her on for a year as a receptionist. And so that would have been the bad business decision. I wish that I would have had more. What I learned from that was, I know more than I think I did. And I lacked so much confidence that I didn't think that I could run the business without her, because she had run it successfully. I didn't think that I could open a salon on my own, that I needed to buy somebody else's salon instead of starting from scratch. So I think that those were two decisions that I would have done differently. I would not have kept her on. I wish that I would have been stronger in my convictions to be able to say, you know what, I can do this. I don't need to have you here. And I wish I would have gone after her, because I was just like, I should have gone after her and said, you owe me. So she double dipped. She got all the money from all those tanning packages she sold. And then I lost all of that money because I had to give all that money back. And so I should have gone after her and said, you need to pay me back on that. And by the way, you're no longer employed. But I wasn't strong enough. I was too green in my business, and it was fear. It was fear-based. I was fearful that if I told her that she had to give me that money back, she would have quit. And number two, I thought that if I fired her, that I wouldn't have been able to keep it going. And so I would say that those were probably two of the business decisions I wish I would have done differently.
All right. Well, I like those. And hey, now we do have the worst business decision. I don't, and I think everybody is always afraid to say, oh, well, it's the worst decision, because to your point, I think you can learn something from it. But I also think you need to recognize that, hey, this was not a good decision, but now I can learn from it, I can improve from it, and I won't make it again, and I can use it as an opportunity. So I don't think they're mutually exclusive, but I think that's a great one to learn from. Second question I always ask is, now if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
My advice would be, there would be two pieces. Number one, don't sweat the small stuff, because all the little things, it's like the little chihuahuas that are nipping at your heels. Just don't worry about that, because when your attention is on the small stuff, you can't go with the big stuff. And it would be what we talked about earlier. That is, you need to work on your business and not in your business. Because I think that is, again, I wish if I could go back and talk to my future self or my previous self, and when I did open that salon, and if I would have just focused on training the girls and educating them and worried about filling their chairs as opposed to worried about filling my chairs, I think that I would be in a different place. Now I'm where I'm supposed to be, and I understand that. But I think that too many people, you've got to figure out, there was a great book that I listened to called The Gap in the Gain. And it was all about, where do you stay? Are you in the gap of what you didn't do, or do you stay in the gain of what you got done? And one of the things that they talk about in that book, it's not the what, it's the who. And so it's not what do you need to do, it's who can you help you do what you need to do. And so I wish that I would have spent more time working on my business, because I think we had a 6-figure salon, and I think that it could have been double that, because I didn't value me, and I didn't value the education that I was giving the stylists. And I think that if I would have had that confidence in myself and my abilities and worked on my business instead of in it, I think that instead of just pleasing the customers, I could have grown the businesses. And that was always my goal. I wanted the girls that came to work for me, or the stylists, I wanted them to be a better hairdresser than I ever was. I wish I would have pumped more of those out. I wish I would have continued to speak into them, because I think that would have made me even more successful in that arena.
Oh, I think that's definitely makes sense, and a great piece of advice. Well, as we wrap up the episode, if people want to reach out to you, and I'm going to change it up slightly because of your nonprofit, but if they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to donate to your nonprofit, which is not typically in the part that I say, they want to be an employee, they want to be a volunteer, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
So if you want to find out more information, you can go to our website, which is hellogorgeous.org. There's all kinds of information. There's information. We've got an online membership. We have the virtual makeovers. There's a bunch of free resources that are on there. We're on all the social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We have a podcast as well called Hello Gorgeous, Everything Beauty, Cancer, and Inspiration. If they want to reach out to me directly, I can be reached at kbecker@hellogorgeous.org.
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, connect with you, and find out more. So with that, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been it's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you that are listeners, if you have your own journey to tell and you'd like to be guests on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So just go to inventiveguest.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners, make sure to click share, subscribe, leave us a review, because we want to make sure that everyone finds out about all these awesome journeys. And last but not least, if you ever need help with your patents or trademarks or anything else with your startup, your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Well, thank you again, Kim, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thanks, Devin. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.